everybody. How to Write Romantasy is available for pre-order right now, and you have the option to receive a free digital workbook that will help you craft a power couple, throuple, or polycule that readers will devour. All the details are in the description. Get on it. On to today's topic, we're talking about dictation for fiction, and we're speaking with Sarah Elisabeth Sawyer, who is an expert on the topic. Sarah Elisabeth Sawyer is an author and writing instructor who takes authors struggling to master the tools and knowledge of their author journey and helps them become confident in writing their books. She has been featured on Joanna Penn's The Creative Pen podcast, Jane Friedman's blog, Writer's Digest magazine, Inkers Con 2025, and more. She has published 19 books, 11 of which she wrote solely by dictation. Sarah is the host of the Confident Fiction Author podcast, which empowers authors to live their best creative lifestyle. Dictation is a great option for writers because it's accessible. It's great for writers on the go or writers who have various disabilities that make typing a little bit difficult. And we're speaking with Sarah to cover all the ins and outs of dictation, how to make it work, and why it may be the best option for you. Sarah, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me, Jenna. I've been looking forward to this.
Me too. I'm super excited to get started. So before we officially dive in, what exactly is dictation and how does it work for fiction writers?
I could talk a while on this. Dictation is one of my favorite topics. I've dictated all of my fiction for the last 11 published books, plus a couple of more that haven't been published. So I've been dictating all of my fiction since 2020. And basically what it is just speaking your words instead of typing. Some of us are used to that already with like text messages, like you want to just hit that mic and start talking. But a lot of authors, they haven't thought about, I could actually speak my words of fiction instead of being tied to my desk and having to type them. So it's a powerful way of being able to get your words down, not only faster, but healthier. So I'm not tied to my desk. I can walk, I can just lay down on my bed or on the couch and get in a really comfortable position. And, the big benefit is being able to write faster. That's what drew me to dictation, and I have doubled my writing speed. So I took me about an hour to type 1,500 words, and now on average I dictate about 3,000 words an hour. And that's not speaking fast. It's not speaking like even this speed. Like I go slow, I pause, I collect my thoughts, use my imagination. It's just phenomenal for writers. I'm excited to be able to share it. But that's basically what dictation is. Huge benefit for fiction authors.
That's awesome. Faster writing is something that I need specifically. So I'm already like, I'm intrigued. So how did you personally get started with dictation, and what was the learning curve like?
The learning curve was long, and it does not have to be that long for authors now, especially if you do my trainings, and that's one of the reasons why I do it. I first attempted really to dictate in 2013. I found an old Facebook post. I was like, oh wow, it popped up in my memories. And I was like, I don't even remember posting that. But back in 2013, I had gotten a smartphone and I knew about Dragon Dictation, and I had thought about buying the software and putting it on my computer. But I was like, ooh, can I actually speak my words? Like, that's really weird. I don't know how that will feel if I can train myself to do that. So I didn't want to make the investment. But then Dragon came out with the Dragon Anywhere app. And so I downloaded a trial version on my phone. I did a couple of sentences, then I posted on my Facebook. I was like, this could be epic. And it was an epic failure. And I did not continue with dictation after that. I was like, I think through my fingers, I think through typing, and I am not going to be able to speak my words of fiction. So I quit, and then someone on a podcast, they talked about it again, and they're like, oh yeah, I get to dictate while I'm out taking a walk, and I'm getting all of these words in. And so I would go and try it again and fail. And so I did that off and on for several years. Finally, in 2020, I sat myself down and I was like, I want to build a sustainable writing career. I want to be able to get my fiction down in, a sustainable way. So I sat myself down and I was like, I am going to train myself to do dictation. So I did that for a couple of months. I had a series of exercises that I did and really worked on training myself to dictate. Started sharing my little bit of successes publicly, but I still wasn't dictating fiction. A couple months after I started all of that, I was getting ready to go out the door and I had a sink full of dishes. I was like, okay, I've got about 20 minutes, get these dishes in. Don't want to leave those in the sink. Just as I walked in the kitchen, the scene downloaded in my brain. And it was a backstory scene. Like I had the whole thing, the first line, the ending line, dialogue, action, like here's this whole scene. And I was like, ooh, I could run in there on my computer and catch a couple of notes. I was like, I can't type this, I don't have enough time, but maybe I could catch a couple of notes. but I've also got these dishes. And I'm like, oh, what do I do? And I was like, I've been practicing this dictation thing. What if I just try to dictate this scene of fiction? So I grabbed my earbuds, which I don't recommend authors using earbuds because the mic quality is not great. But the thing about dictation is use what you have and just get started. Just do something. And so I grabbed my earbuds, plugged them into my phone. I had a recording app on my phone. I started it, put it in my pocket, and started doing the dishes. And so got those done, got out the door. It was about, like I said, about 20 minutes. And when I came back, I transcribed those words in the app. I put them on my computer, and I saw I had nearly 1,500 words in that 20 minutes. And not only was it super fast, but that scene would have been completely gone. I mean, I don't know if you've ever had that, Jenna. It's like you've got that perfect scene in your brain, right? The whole thing. And you're like, I need to get this captured. Maybe it's the middle of the night, or you're out and about and stuff, and you're like, I've got to get that scene. And then you're like, oh, I'll remember it. I'll remember it when I get home and whenever I get to my computer. And it's gone. So I was able to capture that scene. And that's when I was like, this is so powerful, not only for speed, but convenience and just being able to squeeze writing in all the little places in life. And I went on to dictate that entire novel and haven't looked back. I've dictated all of my fiction since then.
It's so funny that you mentioned when you get an idea and you always think, oh, I'll just write it down later and it'll be fine. Or like for me, I'll get ideas in the middle of the night a lot and you're like very sleepy, like type it on your phone. And then the next morning you read it and it's like, what language is this, Where at least you can sleepily say it and you'll understand what you're talking about. But typing it, it's like, what is this nonsense? So yeah, I've been in that position so many times. I have this writing group on Discord. Sometimes I share with them the notes that I wrote at night. And I was like, someone please decipher this for me. It sounds like dictation would help a lot with that, specifically for me and my sleepy rambling. All right, so why would an author choose dictation over typing their stories? What exactly are the benefits?
There are so many. So we've already covered a couple of them. Well, I'll talk about one. Writing faster, but health. Huge. I have so many authors that are coming in my last boot camp, coming to dictation. And one author came, she had surgery on both her wrists for carpal tunnel. I have authors who they've had amputations or they physically cannot sit and type anymore. So they are being drawn to dictation. And I have so many authors who are neurodiverse with ADHD and they're like, this works for my brain. Like I have trouble sitting there typing and staying focused, but there's something about, they can speak their words. So it's that action. And I had an author that way and she was like, she was having trouble just sitting there. And I was like, well, maybe walk around your house and all. So she tried that. And then she's like, what really worked is I went and got on the bus. And there was just something about sitting on the bus and, watching the traffic go by and the action and everything. She said, I was just totally able to get in the zone and dictated a whole scene while riding on the bus. I just talked to an author today where she said she was reaching the point of just being blocked with her story. And she was only getting like 300 words an hour, which is very low for her. Some authors that's normal and that's perfectly fine. But for her, what she was used to writing, 1,500 words in an hour and to only be able to get 300, she was like, oh, this is awful. Like, I just feel like I can't type. So she switched to dictation and now she's hitting like that 1,500 words with speaking her words. I know of so many authors that they've had creative breakthroughs and just the convenience of it, being able to express your words in different places while you're out and about. Also, I think it's the same medium. Like we're still writing sentences, we're still writing scenes. I talk a lot about preserving your author voice, going from typing to dictating, and that's certainly something you can do, but it can give you that different creative space and mode, just a different way of expressing, and being able to use your voice in that can be really helpful for some authors to get their words down versus typing. Dictation can free you from being hunched over your desk and having to type your words.
I love that you talked about, the neurodiverse community. I'm on the autism spectrum. Sorry, I was blunt. I'm autistic, but also a bitch. A lot of my friends have ADHD, and a lot of people who have autism and ADHD are like, it's kind of like these competing forces, and sometimes it can make writing difficult. This just seems like a way to make writing so much more accessible to different kinds of people, whether they're physically disabled or neurodiverse or something like that. Or of course, if you're neurotypical, but you just want to write more, it's great that there are so many options that make publishing books accessible.
I have so many blocks that I had to overcome to do dictation. That's why I want to teach authors that like shortcut those things because it is so powerful.
I completely agree. So how does dictation affect the outlining and planning process?
So I used to be a pantster, so a seat of the pants writer, just writing by the seat of my pants. I would get frustrated with all the revision and all the, wrong directions I would take. So I would do outlining, and then I was like, oh, this is exhausting. I don't like writing an outline. And plus, once I get in there and I get to talking to the characters and stuff, the story goes off the rails anyway. And I end up going in a different direction. And I'm like, I wasted that time and energy doing an outline. So I would argue back and forth with myself on, do I do an outline or not? With dictation, it makes the outlining fun because I can just speak. It's basically like I'm sitting down and telling someone my story and just going scene by scene and being able to do that. And then if I do go off the rails when I get into my first draft, I don't have to worry about it as much because I'm like, it's not a stress because I'm like, it didn't take any energy to do it anyway because I dictated it. So even if I throw out half of my outline as I'm going through my first draft, it's not a big deal because I had that opportunity to just speak it. So one question authors have is, do I have to have an outline to dictate? I know of authors that they are completely seat of the pants writers and they dictate their stories. I think it's helpful to have an outline regardless of whether you're typing or whether you're dictating, but you do not have to have an outline to dictate. So you can just take off with your pantster style and get your story down with dictating. You don't have to have an outline, but if you do want to venture in and try outlining for the first time, do it with dictation because it just takes so much less energy and it's a lot of fun just to be able to tell your story before you get into writing it.
That's one of the biggest complaints I hear about outlining is they're like,
oh, it takes so long and by the time I'm done, I'm not interested in the story.
I enjoy outlining, so I don't mind that, but that is a huge complaint with a lot of people. First of all, if you speak, the outline out loud, like you said, it's like telling the story to a friend, so you get all of that excitement out and it's a much faster process. So this is fantastic for people who aren't like me and they're like, I hate this part of the process, just streamline it, act like you're talking to a friend. I love that. Mm-hmm. How do you stay in the flow while dictating?
Ooh, that's a really good one. So I have found as I have dug my new neural pathways in my brain, dictating is now as natural as typing for me. A lot of the same things that I do whenever I would type my stories, I do the same thing now with dictating. Jenna, honestly, once I hit like that 500 word mark, everything else disappears. Like I'm not aware of anything in the room. I am not aware of what position I'm in or that I'm speaking versus typing. Like all of that completely disappears and I am just in the story. I am in the flow of it. For me, it's been about the same. I'm pretty solid with staying in my writing flow. Once I get going, having my outline helps because if I kind of like get a little, it's like, where was I going again? I'll go back to my outline. But a lot of authors, they do struggle with that, especially when they're first beginning with dictation. And that's why I teach a couple of things. One, don't put the pressure on yourself to just immediately switch over to dictation and like, okay, I'm not going to type. I'm just going to dictate. Just do a couple of minutes of your writing session by dictation and then type, or type for a while and then dictate toward the end, just to start training yourself to that and making that transition. Another author I heard that I thought was really good, and some of my authors have done this, they'll be like typing and then they'll be speaking the words out loud at the same time, just to start really developing that practice of typing and speaking at the same time. So it makes it a little easier to do that transition. The other thing I encourage authors is don't feel like you have to go fast or that you're going to break the flow. You're like, how do I stay in the flow? For me, it takes a while, to kind of get into it. But once I'm in my writing flow, I'm going. But if you are with dictation, just pause your dictation function. I think there's that pressure, almost like the blinking cursor or the blank page going, write something. And when the dictation function, when it's activated, you feel like you need to speak and speak continuously and don't stop or it's going to pause on you and it's going to deactivate and something bad's going to happen. Nothing bad is going to happen. Just pause that thing, collect your thoughts, get back, whatever you need to do to get back in the flow, and just and then start your dictation function again and keep writing forward. That's what I did whenever I was starting out to train myself with dictation. And it's what I teach authors to do now in order to just stay in that flow with dictating their fiction.
It's funny that you mentioned that some people will type while they're speaking it aloud. That's how I write my YouTube script. So I'm sitting here like, I'm already halfway there. I'm already on my way. All right, so what kind of impact has dictation had on your writing output?
Doubled my writing speed. Like I said, I went from about 1,500 words an hour, which I could hit up to 2,000 words an hour. I don't have it here with me. I've held on to my old Neo too, I don't know if you're familiar with those, Alpha Smart, then you had the Neo 2. I call it my little typing machine. So I could just type, and that's how I could get my highest word count. Being able to go from, writing, like I said, top 2,000 words an hour to an average of 3,000 words an hour and hit up to 4,000 words an hour is incredibly powerful, because I'm going to be honest, I'm not a terribly consistent writer. I kind of go in and out. I do writing seasons. Like I'll get into a story and then I'll be out of it, and I'll finish a book and then it'll be a while before I do another one. So with being able to dictate and get large amounts of words down when I am in a writing season, like that feels so amazing. Not only is it faster, I get more momentum in a story. Getting to that muddy middle, right, that I don't like writing through. And I think a lot of authors, like, we don't like writing through that muddy middle. The great thing about dictation is you can get through that faster. And so you're not like getting so stuck and bogged down, and you can just get through the not so fun parts to write faster and get into the fun parts. So with dictating, the most I ever wrote in a day was 11,000 words. And I did that, I say a day, it was like a morning to like noon or 1 o'clock. And I finished the book that I was working on, and it was 11,000 words. I calculated at the end, I was like, I didn't even know I was even close to that. I thought it was like 7,000 words maybe. And I finished that and I was like, I'm not tired. I don't feel like I've been on a writing marathon. Like I was very comfortable just laying on my couch and was able to get to the end of that story. And that's just happened so many times. I've been able to finish my story when I wouldn't have otherwise with typing. It's changed my writing life for sure. Most definitely.
Seriously, when you mentioned that, like, there have been times where you got 4,000 words in an hour, that's a lot of writers' daily writing goal. Like the whole day, 8 hours,
Oh,
4,000 words. Man.
Or even just 2,000 words or 1,000
Right.
words. Yeah, it's extraordinary.
So what sort of dictating programs do you recommend?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that, because I know I mentioned Dragon, and for the longest time that was really our only option for dictating, and that is not the case. I've never used Dragon beyond that trial version on my phone. So I never bought Dragon. I don't use Dragon for dictation. Authors, if you own Dragon, perfectly fine. That's still a great software to use, but there are so many more options now. If you have an Android phone, iPhone, MacBook, or Windows PC, like whatever device you have, wherever you can type, you should be able to dictate, because it is an accessibility feature, right? We're talking about being able to use devices and disabilities, like speech to text is now on every device. So I started with the record and transcribe method, and that's where you record your words and then have them transcribed, which a lot of people did with Dragon. I had an app that I was using for that on my iPhone. I don't recommend that app anymore because it started getting glitches and all in it, but I did write 9 books on it. It was phenomenal. My current method though is I use Scrivener. So I have the Scrivener for iOS app on my phone, and I just write directly into Scrivener using the built-in dictate function on my phone. So it's not a Scrivener dictation function. It just uses it within there on the keyboard. So I just pull the keyboard up in my scene, hit my dictate mic, and start speaking my words. And so I'm dictating directly into Scrivener, and that's how I do my dictation now. If you write in Microsoft Word, if you write in Google Docs, like whatever writing software you're using, you should be able to dictate directly into it. And I always encourage authors to do it on your computer and on your phone. That way you have both of those options. If you're sitting at your desk and you want to get some words in, go ahead and pop it open with your computer. Or if you're out and about, be comfortable with what you can use on your phone in order to capture your words. But a lot of options nowadays.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me today. Where can everyone find you online?
So my site is fictioncourses.com, and I have a couple of free resources for your audience, Jenna. You can go to fictioncourses.com/dictation. And I have a dictation quick start guide that you can go download for free. And I also have a free mini course called Dictation plus Scrivener Power Combo. So for the Scrivener users, I spend time showing how I use that on my phone and my computer and sync them and all of that good stuff. So a couple of resources there. And then I also have my digital course, Dictation, which I did do that word. That is the word that I coined. Dictation. So I call that the act of dictating your fiction. So my authors that come into the boot camp or come into my dictation course, we call ourselves dictators instead of dictators.
Love that. I love that. That's so cute.
Yeah, so I invite authors to come in and check it out. I'm also on Substack now. I just got on there at fictioncourses.substack.com, and I have a 5-minute fiction club where I'm working with authors just to get used to dictating their fiction just 5 minutes a day. So you can also come join that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. It was an absolute pleasure.
It was so good of you to have me, Jenna. I appreciate it.
Of course. So that's all I got for you today. If you're interested in Sarah's Dictation digital course, use the coupon code Moreci and you can get $200 off. That is a huge discount. I've got a link in the description below. Definitely check it out. Use the code Moreci and you get $200 off. $200! That's insane. How to Write Romantasy comes out in October, so if you're trying to write your very own fantasy romance novel, pre-order it today. Even better, if you pre-order, you can receive a bonus digital workbook. All you have to do is submit your proof of purchase. I've got the details linked below. You can also check out my first writing craft book, Shut Up and Write the Book, as well as the first 2 books in my Romantasy series, The Savior's Champion and The Savior's Sister, and you want to get on the hype soon because The Savior's Army is on its way. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I post new videos on Wednesdays and I host live streams on Mondays, and if you want to be alerted as soon as I upload, ring that bell. Bye! Have you subscribed to my channel yet? I mean, you totally should. I post new videos on Wednesdays. I also host live streams on Mondays, and they're super fun. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel and be sure to ring that bell. That way you're alerted as soon as I post new content.